I killed my boyfriend. I hate my mother. My father drank himself to death. No.
Today we are meeting in the Swedish embassy in Warsaw, and I would like to seize the opportunity to ask you some questions we received from your Polish fans. And the questions were selected in a competition organized on Facebook's profile of the embassy. Isn't Annika Benson, the main character of your books, really you, Liza Marklund?
Yes, she is. I killed my boyfriend. I hate my mother. My father drank himself to death. No. No, she's not me. Poor thing. I mean, I gave her such a terrible background. I mean, we are women. We have that in common. And we live in the same city and we have the same job. But that's about it. I mean, I quit my job at the tabloid to sit in my bedroom and write crime novels, and Annika would never do that.
Could you imagine that Annika could have another profession, another job, do something different, and if so, what it would be?
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that she is a reporter is more or less a coincidence, or should I say the result of Swedish politics during the 60s and 70s. We were allowed, even the working class girls were allowed to go to school to study, so she could get an academic profession and she could become a journalist. But if circumstances had been a little bit different, she would probably have been working as a cleaning lady, or maybe in the cashiers, or as a waitress, or at the gas station. She could have any kind of blue-collar jobs, really.
In what circumstances did you get the idea to write a crime book with the main heroine, Annika Benson? And did you plan that from the beginning, that it's going to be a series of books?
Yes, I planned the whole series before I started writing it. I actually got a contract to write 5 at least before I started. And I had the whole series planned in my head, actually, before I even began. I started writing them 16 years ago, in 1997. And just recently, the number 10 was published in Sweden, and it's going to be one more, and then I'm finished. And I was going to tell about my main character. Annika Benson is somewhat of an incantation. If I keep talking about her long enough, if I keep writing about her, maybe the rest of us could be a little bit more like her. She's allowed to make mistakes. Nobody would get away with all the mistakes that she makes. Men are, but not women usually. But I wanted a really complex character that is a human being, even though she's a woman. I wanted her to be really intelligent, really street smart, but I wanted her to be mean to her colleagues at work. She's unprofessional in some ways, absolutely. I wanted her to cry too much, and I wanted her to love her children but hate her mother. I wanted her to be complex, because human beings are. In this genre, in the crime genre, there are quite a few women, but they're mostly there to be killed or get laid. So I wanted to have something more complex. I wanted a true person. And this means that she's very irritating in many ways, because women are not supposed to act like this. I really like her, but I wouldn't marry her.
How and when did you become interested in a crime novel, and what inspired you to write such a book on your own?
Reading at the age of 7 or 8, and what I read was mystery books, girls' mystery books like Nancy Drew. And I grew up reading Cheval Valet, and other kind of crime novels. I thought this was normal books, you know, to me this is normal. I started writing books about a girl solving mysteries at the same age as I started reading. And she was called Annika back then as well. I've always been writing about this character. She's been with me for a very long time. And it was basically the same back then. I mean, Annika solved mysteries and she got into trouble, but she made it in the end. So it's basically the same story today, but a little bit more complex maybe.
Please tell us why there are so many great crime novels written in Sweden and in Scandinavia, and what's behind it? What's behind this success?
You can only find crime novels in really stable democracies, where the living is good and everything is peaceful. And where else on earth can you find such an extremely peaceful society with a democracy that's been around since the Middle Ages? I mean, we've had peace for 200 years in Sweden. The last time we were at war was when Russia took Finland away from us. So we are a white canvas. We are a perfect backdrop for a crime novel, because crime novels are always about killing, and this is the worst abuse of power known to man. It's also the biggest blasphemy, that somebody takes on the role of God and rules over life and death. And when you put this black spot on the white canvas, you get a really strong contrast. And I think this actually is the explanation for why crime novels work so well in Scandinavia. I have friends in Kenya, in the Masai Mara, and when I tell them that I write novels about crime, they look at me and they go, "But why?" They don't get it. Why do you write about crime? When you're living right next door to Somalia, you don't need crime novels.
Liza, you achieved an enormous success on the international publishing market. You have millions of fans all over the world. And how do you feel with it? Are you satisfied as a writer?
I'm extremely grateful that I have so many readers, but I'm also very surprised, because I had no idea that my books were going to sell. I had no idea they were going to be translated when I started writing about them, because the reason I started to write about these topics, about violence against women, about abused children, you know, female leadership, because nobody wanted these topics in the paper. I tried to write about them in the newspaper. I tried to get people interested in this topic, in feminism, in women's rights, but nobody was willing. Everybody said, you know, it doesn't sell, you know, why don't you give up? So I started writing books about this, because since it didn't sell any papers. So I was really, really surprised when they actually started selling. I mean, they weren't supposed to.
What would you recommend for a foreign tourist in Sweden to see there, which is not in the guidebooks, and which is the Swedish dish you can't resist, which is such a wonderful food you love to eat?
Picking mushrooms. That's one of the best things with Sweden, and you can't find it in any guidebooks. In fall, go into the forest and look for the yellow gold, the chanterelles, the mushrooms. It's fantastic. And you should look for the mixture of needle trees and leaf trees. You need both of them in order for these mushrooms to grow. That's the best thing. And the food that I can't resist, except for the mushrooms, is a dish from the north, where I was raised, called palt. It could be Polish, actually. It's a kind of, you boil flour and potato for an hour, and you get a big gray rock. And you put pork inside it, and it's fantastic. You eat it with butter.
Liza, if you were to live on a desert island and you could only take one book with you, so which book would it be?
Elsa Morante La Storia, because then I wouldn't miss society so much, and I would realize that society is an ongoing scandal.
Have you already an idea about the plot of the next book about Annika? And if yes, what is it going to be about?
Well, I do know what it's going to be about. It's the last book in the series, and I am not going to tell you what it's about. Pozdrawiam musich. Pozdrawiam musi. Ska vi köra en gång till eller? Vad tycker du? Moich. Celnikov v Polsce i Ciors Rze ze Szwici. Pozdrawiam moich czytelników w Polsce oraz fanów profilu i ciuszcza się ze Szwecji.